Good afternoon, everybody. 12:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here on episode 161 of McRae Live, it is Tuesday, April the 13th, 2021. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. It is an all Q&A Tuesday today. It's primarily because I am just too fucking busy. And I just didn't really have time to scroll through any ideas and topics that I wanted to talk about today. And, you know, let's be fair. I mean, the vast majority of interesting news, of people who think is all stuff that I'm not really interested in anyway. So I was like, it's just, you know, you scroll a movie website and 98.6% of it is DC and Marvel and Black Widow and Black Adam and this. And I'm just like, I just don't care. I mean, but I do mean this when I say this. I am genuinely happy for those of you that really do care. I do mean that because I can imagine it in my own life, right? I can sit back and I can think, I can relate it to something that I get excited about in my own life. And yeah, I totally get it. But man, are we ever saturated with that stuff? Like there's just so much of it. It's just everywhere. You really got to dig to find some other interesting stuff. I'm excited for Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm excited for that. You know, I mean, I'm excited for it, not necessarily because of what I've seen in the trailers, or trailer, I guess I should say, really. I don't think there's been any others. I'm not excited, just looks fine. You know, I'm looking forward to it. But I could not care less if they ever made another Marvel movie ever again. I don't know. Dave, how come you're not into that stuff? Well, here's why. It's because I didn't grow up with it. I was never into comics. I didn't grow up with I didn't grow up with that stuff. You know, I mean, I knew about it, of course. You know, I mean, you couldn't grow up not knowing about Spider-Man and Superman and Batman and, you know, Wonder Woman, of course, the Hulk, of course, you know about it. But I never grew up with any sort of infatuation or even interest really in those characters. I mean, I liked Superman. Like I always say, I like Superman and Batman. I mean, but they're your staples, right? I mean, that's like saying, you know, I don't like Star Wars, but I think Darth Vader's cool. It's like, well, you know, it's like, yeah, but it's Darth Vader. I mean, he's such a pop culture icon, you know, that, I mean, you could not give a shit about Star Wars and you'd know who Darth Vader was. You know, you could not give a shit about Star Wars and you'd know, you know, that voice, you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. Although I think mine goes a little further. I actually did really like the Superman movies with Christopher Reeves and Batman, of course, with I used to watch the 60s cartoon when I was a young boy before Tim Burton's Batman came out. And you know, like I like that stuff, but I think what it is for me is it's how hardcore, and I get it, I totally get it, because you can relate it to how hardcore we sometimes get with Halloween, right? It's the same thing, it's just Halloween isn't the dominant, you know, pop culture interest in terms of movies. Superhero, Marvel, DC is when it comes to the world of sort of fandom and things like that. And I admit it can get fucking annoying after a while because it's like, God, shut up! You know what I mean? But then again, there are Halloween fans too, and myself included, that I'm sure can get really fucking annoying to some people. So, you know, shut up, McRae! How many fucking times can you talk about Halloween? It's true if you think about it. So, I don't know. Before I do my shows, depending on how busy, I've just been really... It's crunch time now for It's Me, Billy, and there's just a lot of moving parts. And of course, not just that, but of course I'm handling, you know, the voiceover side of things and all that. So there's a lot of stuff that is moving right now. So it's just been very busy. But ordinarily, what I do is either the morning of or the night before, I'll look at Deadline, I'll look at The Hollywood Reporter, I'll look at Variety, I'll look at even, like, you know, Bloody Disgusting or Screen Rant, or, you know, just to gather, maybe there's an article or somewhere in there that catches my interest with something. And it's not that there wasn't. I mean, I did sort of skim through it this morning, and there's stuff in there I could talk about, but I could just be stretching it. You know what I mean? So I'd rather just open up to a Q&A today and just, you know, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. And that's the way it is. But, so that's what we're going to do today. So let's start here. Mark Williams says, "Hey Dave, have you seen King of New York with Christopher Walken?" Oh, wow. No, I haven't seen it. My Walken. My shoes are tied. I spotted a Halloween 4 poster in the background. Very good Walken performance. A mouse in the house. I have not seen King of... Or maybe I have. I don't think I have, though. I don't think I have. But there's always room for Christopher Walken. There is always room for a little Walken. Yeah. There's young Walken was like, "Hello, I'm here. Come on. Let's go down to the store now." That's like a younger Walken. And then as he gets older, he's like, "Come on. Let's go down to the store now. It's time to have fun." You know, that's kind of where he is now. He's kind of in that register now, as opposed to the younger Christopher Walken. He's more down here. He's sexier now. Evil Alex says, "Hello, Dave. What are your favorite and least favorite theater experience you had watching films with people in general?" That's a good one. I don't know. My favorite theater experience? I don't know, man. I don't really have one, really. I mean, my theater experiences have been pretty good. You know, they're just sort of uneventful. You know, I mean, every now and then you'd get somebody who was chatting, or you'd have, you know, the phone. You know how that is, right? You know, the more often you go, the more likely you'll see something like that or experience something like that. But I've never had a movie-going experience that I can remember that was like, you know, oh my God. I mean, you know, I guess it all depends on the movie. Like how often, I mean, the movie-going experience is pretty predictable. It's the movie, I think, is what you're talking about, right? Like, what movie was amazing to see in the theater? Well, I mean, Jesus, you know. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, and I sincerely mean that. My movie-going experiences are pretty uneventful. They're just kind of, you sit there, you watch the movie, you leave. I mean, it doesn't, you know, I've never had a bad... I remember when I went to see the movie, I've told this before. I remember when I went to see the movie Insidious in the theater. I was downtown Toronto. It's 2011. Even though it's a 2010 movie, this was 2011, I think. And I was downtown Toronto, and I had a few hours to kill between voiceover sessions. So I had a voiceover session at like, I don't know, 11 a.m. or something like that. And then I had another one at like 3 p.m. or something. So I had a block of time there, 2.5 hours or so, that I had time to kill. So I went to Dundas Square, which is Toronto's little kind of Times Square area. And I went to the movie theater there, and I went and saw Insidious by myself. Just I had to kill some time. So I sat there, and it was me, and there were a few people sitting right behind me. And I remember during the moments of, like, during the scary moments, or, you know, the jump scare, whatever, they would kick the seat behind me, like as if they were like so scared. They would kick the seat. And there were two options I could have. There were, maybe if I was in a different mood, especially if I was younger. If I'm not, I mean, I was like 30, what was I, 32 or whatever. If I was like 19 or whatever, I would have fucking stood up and George Costanza'd them, if you guys have seen that episode of Seinfeld. But but what I decided to do was not react, because I thought that I just sat there. And I think after a while that freaked them out, because they knew they were hitting my chair. They knew they were hitting my chair. And now in hindsight, like, you know, when I think back, I'm like, fuck, I should have just fucking stood up, and I don't have time for that shit, you know. And the older I get, the more grumpy, get off my lawn, man, I don't give a fuck I'm going to become. I think that's what's going to happen. And I said that fuck with real conviction, you know what I mean? Because there's just, sometimes in life, you got to just say to somebody, you're a fucking idiot. You just are. Sometimes you got to say that. Sometimes you are. The older I get, I think I'm going to become that old. I think I am that old man. Get off my lawn, even though I'm only in my 40s. But I remember that. They were kicking the back of my chair and I didn't react. And I was going to react, but I didn't. And they kept doing it every so often throughout the movie, and I never reacted. Just stoic, And I think that freaked them out. I tell the one where I was in the theater and I went to see King of the Monsters, and there was a kid in front of me during the pre-show and the previews who was like playing Candy Crush or something. And then the movie began and the Warner Brothers logo was coming on and he's still doing it. And I leaned over and I was just like, you're going to want to put that away. And he's like, you know what I mean? I'm like, who the fuck? Why are you still doing this? Anyway, like things like that. But I've never had a real like awful experience. I never have. I know that might sound kind of funny. I don't know if Canadian movie theaters are just different than the US. And I don't know. But yeah, you do get people that don't shut up, or there's somebody, every now and then you're like, shut up. You know what I mean? Like, but there's never been a real bad movie going experience or a real great movie going experience. I've been really enjoyed movies. I really enjoyed The Force Awakens. Love that. But the movie going experience in and of itself was just watching the movie in the theater, I've never been to a movie theater where, and again, I don't know if it's just the difference between American audiences and Canadian audiences. I think I've never been to a movie theater where people have been like rambunctious and cheering and screaming, woo, yeah! I've never been to a movie. But then again, I'm also not going to see what's hot right now. Like maybe if I did go see Avengers Endgame in the movie theater on opening weekend, downtown Toronto, maybe that would have been the experience. I don't know. I tend not to go to the movies where you might experience that. I tend to just go and see like, nobody's doing that in, in Creed or something or I don't know what else, I don't know. Just, you know what I mean? I don't know. I can't, but I'm being honest with you. Like I've never really had an overly amazing theater going experience or a bad one, really. It's just kind of just go see the movie and that's it. I don't know. I know it sounds pretty uneventful, but it's kind of true. It's kind of true. Fallen Bro says Canadians are nicer people. Well, there's the stereotype. There is that stereotype for sure. But I remember talking to, who was I? I don't know if it was a buyer, like a client with voiceover or whatever, but they were shocked to learn that Toronto, now again, it's nowhere near what like Chicago is. But again, there's that stereotype, right? And there's kind of Americans, not every American, not everybody, but certainly there is that kind of that view of Canada as this sort of utopian, Toronto gets about I think, what's the homicide rate this year? They average, I think, about 100 homicides a year, or maybe that's just with guns. I can't remember. It might be over that. For the size of the city it is, fourth largest in the continent, it is a safe city. You look at Chicago and they get like 100 homicides a day. You know what I mean? So obviously it's relative, but we have but we're also only a country of like nearly 40 million people, right? If we were a country of 330 million people like the US, logic tells you that the issues, though obviously there would be more problems, there'd be more violence, do you know what I mean? But yes, as a whole, I would say Canadians are, and again, not everybody, but there is a passiveness to the, passiveness to the, I don't know what the right word would be. Nicer, yeah, I guess. But I've been to the States many times, and but there's fucking dicks up here too. There's fucking dicks. There's assholes. There's pieces of shit. You know what I mean? Like they're everywhere. Like every country's got them. Every city's got them. It's just we don't have as many people, so there's just not as many of them. You know what I mean? But they're up here. I've met fucking dicks, man. Fucking pieces of shit. Egocentric, pinheads. You know what I mean? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're up here too. They are. It's not like you cross the border and it's this wonderful, you know what I mean? Generally speaking, are we friendlier? Maybe, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I've never noticed it. I mean, but see, there's the stereotype up here in Canada that other parts of the country loathe Toronto. People hate Toronto up here. No, I don't hate it. But people are like, oh, Toronto is the fucking center of the universe. And yeah, there is Toronto and the GTA, which is the Greater Toronto Area, right? That's like the Chicagoland or, whatever. There's like there's like 3 million people in Toronto, another 6 million in the GTA. Like there's like 10 million people, in this area. If you include Niagara and the Golden Horseshoe and all that. And what's funny is but Toronto and this area is the most American part of Canada, I think, if you know what I mean. It's other parts of Canada are I don't know. You got Montreal, which is very French, of course, Vancouver, but Toronto is a very American city. And other parts, it just is. It's the size, it's the scope. It's a very American kind of city. And I think a lot of other parts of Canada don't like that because whenever a big, artist comes to Canada or a big group comes to Canada, generally speaking, they're always going to go to Toronto. And sometimes they just go to Toronto and they don't go to Vancouver. I mean, generally speaking, let's say like a band like, I don't know, let's say like Coldplay or AC/DC or, whatever, right, is going to come to Canada. There's generally 3 places they're going to go for sure, 100%. Doesn't mean they're not going to go to a smaller place. They might go to Saskatchewan, maybe. But generally speaking, it's a safe bet. They're going to go to Montreal, Vancouver, or Toronto. And if they're not going to go to Montreal or Vancouver, you can bet your ass they're going to go to Toronto because that's where the vast majority, you know what I mean? It's the epicenter of the country, essentially, even though it's not the capital of the country. It's the New York of Canada, right? So it's, yeah, there is a loathing for Toronto from the rest of the country. You ask people out west, fuck Toronto, fucking sending the fucking mean piece of shit. And people in the rest of the country have like this idea that, yeah, people in Toronto, they're cold, they're mean, they don't say hi to you and shit. And it's like, maybe there is some of that. Maybe I've lived too long here in Toronto, and it is because it's an Americanized sort of city, not intentionally necessarily. I just think that the larger your cities grow, and because we live right there, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, it's I went off on a tangent from that, but yes, Canadians, I mean, it definitely, there is, I'm not saying it's not true. I just always like to, as a Canadian and as somebody who's lived here my whole life and as somebody who's traveled to the States on many occasions, now, mind you, I haven't been everywhere in the States, but I don't notice a huge difference. I mean, yes, there's differences, 100%. But like I always say, it's not like there's not a culture shock. You know what I mean? It's not like traveling from here to Beirut or something. But yeah, there's yeah. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know, is it like that in the States too, where a lot of parts of the US loathe New York? I fucking hate New York, man. Big and loud and fucking people and mean. And I'm sure that's like that. And Toronto's nowhere near the size of New York. It's more the size of Chicago. But I mean, it's that, it's that thing. I'm sure there are people overseas. Fuck London, fucking piece of shit. And I'm sure there are people in Japan. Fuck Tokyo, goddamn Tokyo. Although Tokyo is pretty fucking cool. Never been, but I hear it's really cool. Justin Goodrich, says, Dave, any plans to try to get It's Me, Billy on sites like Netflix or Shudder? Can't do it, man. We don't own the rights. Is it possible for fan films to make it to streaming sites, or do film rights get in the way? No. Film rights get in the way. We don't own... People can't pay to see it, right? So that's why it's released on YouTube for free. In that sense. So we can't commercialize the film to Netflix or to Amazon or to Shudder, because how that works is usually if you have an original film, Shudder or Netflix or whoever will want to pick up the distribution rights. Well, you get paid for that. You know what I mean? If you own the rights to it, right? It's an original piece. It's your own work. You know, there are negotiations, there's contracts, there's you know, how long is it going to stream for and when, and all that kind of stuff. And that's something that fan films can't do because we don't own the intellectual property. So although It's Me, Billy, much like Never Hike Alone and In the Snow, is original in the sense that it's an original story. I mean, it's not like we're redoing Black Christmas, or we are doing our own version of, like, you know how sometimes there are those little Halloween fan films out there that will just make their own version of the original, or, you know, whatever it is. We're not doing that. I mean, it is an original story, but it uses the characters, right? And now, it uses the character, I should say, of Billy, not the character of like Sam or anybody that. I mean, that's obviously our own original, but it's the IP. It's the IP. And so no, we are not allowed to do that. We'd be sued through the underwear if we did that. Now, if those who do own the distribution rights and the intellectual property rights for Black Christmas like what they see and want to talk, we'd be open for it. I would love that. I think that'd be great. But that in and of itself, no, can't go to streaming. That's why Never Hike Alone and Never Hike in the Snow never ended up on Netflix or Shudder or whatever. As much as we would love that, as much as Vince, I'm sure, would be like, that'd be great. You know what I mean? Can't do it. Hans Gruber, how much would you have to pay a lawyer if you contracted with streaming? If I contracted with streaming sites? Well, where are you here? I lost you. Oh no, where'd you go? Oh, here we are. Would you have to pay a lawyer if you contracted with streaming? You mean if I was to, how much would I get sued? Or I have no idea. If that's what you mean. I'm not quite sure I understand your question. How much would I have to pay a lawyer if I was to sign a contract with the streaming sites? Is that your question? Everyday Horror says, Dave, do you feel like you transcended the Halloween YouTube community? That's an interesting question. You're my go-to with any conversation regarding Halloween. You also have everyone trying to mimic your channel. Thoughts? Everyone trying to mimic my channel? Who's mimicking my channel? Is there somebody else out there doing a Dave McRae impression or something? That'd be hilarious. I'd love to see that. Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. Transcended the YouTube community, the horror YouTube. I don't think that, or the Halloween. I don't know. I don't think about it. I don't really think about it. I just do what I do. I don't concern myself, and this is true. It's absolutely true. I don't concern myself, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. I don't concern myself with what others are doing on their channels. I don't care what they're doing. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't support what they're doing, whatever that is, but I don't think about it. I don't tune in to find out what somebody else is doing and then I should go and do that. I just do my own thing. You know, I'll be honest with you, I really don't know what others are doing. I mean, I'll watch Cody Leach or Lee or Wham or whatever, and they seem to just be doing what they're doing, how they've always done it, and they're growing and things like that. I'll watch other channels that have nothing to do with most of the time, I'm not even watching channels in our community. I'm watching like documentaries or like little things on skylines or, insights into movies and stuff, but there aren't our channels, So I don't know how to answer that question. Transcended though, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a itsy bitsy channel, but I'm certainly not a massive channel. I'm kind of just in the middle, I guess, in terms of our space. I'd be tiny compared to fucking the millions of subs, but I mean, in terms of our space, I'm kind of in the middle, and so I don't know. And I haven't noticed anybody copying me. Are there channels that are copying? But then again, I don't know what you mean by copying me. Are they using like my, what do you mean by that? I'm curious because I haven't seen it, so I don't really know. I don't really know. But if you can expand on it, I will try and answer it. Corey Dean says, I can imagine. Oh, he's talking to Nick. I can imagine, Nick, I have no patience. I live in Ohio and refuse to drive to Cleveland. If I can have it, drives are crazy. I can only imagine LA and New York. Yeah, LA and New York traffic obviously is awful. Toronto traffic is brutal. For those of you that don't know, Toronto's highway 401, the stretch between across the top of Toronto, Highway 401 it's called. We call it the 401. And it's one of the largest, if not the largest freeway. It's a freeway. We call freeways highways here. We call everything a highway here that is. We'll call like a 2-lane road a highway. We'll call a freeway a highway. It's just how we just call, we don't call it a freeway. But for my American friends, the 401 in Toronto is a freeway with like multiple lanes. And it's one of the largest, busiest highways in the world. Dead serious. And the stretch between Toronto, the stretch across the top of Toronto, I believe is if not the busiest in the world, it's the busiest in North America. 100%. Busier than LA, busier than Houston, busier than New York. You can look this up by volume of cars. And that's primarily because the 401, which stretches from Windsor, Ontario, which is down by Detroit, all the way up through Montreal, I believe, is a massive corridor in terms of transportation and shipping of goods. So you can, I mean, the amount of transport trucks. There are times where I've driven on the 401 across the top of Toronto, and I'm like wedged between massive, like 18-wheeler, and it's insane. It's insane. It's a busy highway, you can come to a standstill on that for hours. Now there is another highway or freeway called the 407. It's a toll route though, and it's above the 401. So it's a few kilometers north of the 401 that goes across the top. I sometimes will take that because it's a toll route. So you have to pay for it. So it's not as busy, but it's worth it. I'll tell you right now, if I got to get to the other side of the city and I don't want to go on the 401, I'm like, fuck it. Fuck it. Like it's worth it. It's worth the however far I'm going, because it's not based, of course, on how long you're on it. It's based on how far you go. So I'm like, say wherever, where I have to go is going to cost me like $20. Let's just say that's what I'll fucking do it. 100%. No issues. I'd rather do that than be sitting there on the 401 for like, 2.5 hours. Guys, I am honest to goodness, to get from where I am in Toronto downtown by the CN Tower, let's say on a Sunday or when there's hardly any traffic, right? Can take me about 35 minutes. No issues. On a Monday or a weekday, same time, to get from where I am downtown Toronto to get to a studio down there, whatever, it's taken me sometimes 2.5 hours. It's insane. And if you live in LA or Houston or Atlanta or, where there's that kind of traffic, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, fuck. Like there's times where my voiceover session will be at 10 a.m. and I leave my place at like 7 in the morning, or 6:30, 100%. Because I know I'm going to be sitting there in traffic. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. It's some of these, it's insane. It's insane for sure. For sure. Let me see if there was a follow-up to, I don't see the follow-up yet to the question. Wait. Yeah, I don't know. No, Hans Gruber says, Dave, sorry for being rhetorical. No, that's okay. Going off your answer about owning intellectual property that a streaming site might want to distribute, what are the lawyer fees would be in a contract negotiation? Oh, I have no idea. I mean, it would depend on how much the rights are worth and who's all involved and what the deal. I mean, how much that would be would be dependent on the money that's being circulated in that environment in terms of getting something like that going. So it depends, right? I don't really know. I mean, if you're negotiating the rights to Star Wars, I would imagine that would be pretty hefty. If you're negotiating the rights to Black Christmas, it's probably not as much as Star Wars. So it all depends. There's too many variables. I have no idea. I myself have never been in that kind of a negotiation, so I don't really know, Hans. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, I live an hour away from where they filmed The Shawshank Redemption in various areas of Ohio. I consider this the holy grail of Ohio movie sites. What are the holy grail movie sites in Canada? Oh, that would be great. Jesus, I don't know. I mean, the thing is that there are so many Hollywood productions that shoot up here in Canada, whether it's Vancouver or Toronto. I mean, God, I don't know. I mean, you know, you could say, Robert, I sincerely don't know. I don't know. I would have to, I mean, Jesus, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you know, for horror fans, you could say the Black Christmas House, but that feels like a cop-out. It feels just like, you know, you don't know what else to say. So, you know, you say that. And in some ways, that is why I'm saying that. I would have to do more of a deep dive into find out exactly what was filmed here, what parts of it were filmed here. Because sometimes they'll shoot here in Canada, but they don't shoot everything here. I mean, It's Chapter 1 and 2 were shot here, right? But is that really the whole? I mean, there's so many movies that are shot up here in Canada, that I'd have to look into it and find out what were shot on location, because that's what we're really talking about, right? Because a lot of the times when they shoot in Vancouver and Toronto, they shoot on sound stages, and they'll shoot in studio. So yes, they're shot up here and they're filmed up here, but it's not necessarily on location. Sometimes it is, but not all the time. Now, It's Chapter 1 and 2 were shot on location here. Derry, Maine was actually a town called Port Hope. Now, Port Hope is just 2 hours maybe east of Toronto, hour and a half. But I don't think that's the holy grail. I mean, there's nobody going, we got to go to Port Hope. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really know. I think what it would come down to is we'd have to look at what films have been shot in Canada on location that have embedded itself into the pop culture on a grand scale, like The Shawshank Redemption did. It's Chapter 1 and 2 haven't done that. Do you know what I mean? Suicide Squad was shot in Toronto. The remake of Total Recall was shot in Toronto. The Shape of Water was shot in Toronto. Star Trek Discovery is shot in Toronto. You know, but those aren't, you know, nobody's going, oh, I gotta go see the diner where they shot The Shape of Water. Wow. Nobody's doing that. You know what I mean? Because The Shape of Water isn't The Shawshank Redemption. So, I mean, I'd have to look and see, are there any, and I'm sure there are, films that are classics, you know, like, oh, that was shot around here. Oh, I gotta check that out. You know, John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness was shot up here. You know, that big church that's in the Mouth of Madness, that's in Markham, Ontario, just a suburb of Toronto. So yeah, I'd have to look at a list and look at what could be perceived like that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's a good question, though. It's a good question. Duke Fleet says, Dave, what's your favorite Kubrick film? Ooh, it's going to be a toss-up between The Shining and 2001, I would say, probably. Clockwork Orange is really good, though, too. But then, of course, you got Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah, there's... Yeah, there's... I would... For me, 2001 or The Shining, I think, is probably my favorites. Goomba Johnny says, Dave, are you a Jays fan? I am. How do you feel about them not being able to play in Toronto? Well, it sucks, but at the same time, for those of you that don't know, the province of Ontario is locked down here. We're locked down again. This is our third time locked down in a year, and it's getting a little ridiculous, quite frankly. I think this is getting insane. I don't think the lockdowns help at all, and I'll just leave it at that. So we couldn't go to a Jays game even if we wanted to, because like we're literally locked down. Like it's insane that we can't do anything. And there's a stay-at-home emergency order as well. So basically, the government of Ontario is saying if you don't have to leave for any medical reason or to get food, stay the fuck home. That's basically what they're saying. Now, there hasn't been any sort of like arrests or things like that, but there have been protests and stuff. And I think it's I'm all for being safe, but I think these lockdowns are actually doing more harm than they are good now. And I think that, we all know what the definition of insanity is. It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, the first 2 lockdowns didn't do anything. So I this is my personal opinion, of course. Of course, I want people to be safe and I want people to make the right informed decisions based on evidence and facts. But I do think that this is getting a little ridiculous. And I think that there has to be a better way. And people need to, we need to get back to some sort of sense of normalcy. The effect it's having on the economy and people's mental health and the kids. And it's just, it's insane. So even if the Jays were able to play here, we wouldn't be allowed to go see them anyway. I suspect they will be in Florida for the rest of the year. I don't see why the point, to come back really. And the Raptors too. The Raptors have been playing down there as well. So it's a little disappointing, but I think the Leafs are playing up here though. Now there's no crowds at the games, but I think the Leafs are playing down at the arena here. But anyway, and the Leafs are doing amazing. Sabres suck, but anyway, that's a whole other thing. Let's see. Dave Bob Petway says, how do you feel about prequels or remakes? Some try to dive too deep, like seeing Vader and MM as kids. Oh, Michael Myers, maybe. I don't mind prequels that are like a lead up. I think they're completely unnecessary. It doesn't mean some prequels are not fun, but I've yet to watch a prequel that I felt was completely and utterly necessary and made the experience for me richer, and I felt more fulfilled and complete after. Nope. Star Wars prequels? Nope. No, I've never watched a prequel film that has made me. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. But that's me, and I agree with you, Dave. I agree with you, my man. Let me just make sure I didn't miss. I just want to make. No, I didn't. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not missing any super chats. I don't want to skim past it and forget and forget people. Excuse me. All right. Oliver Mercer says, hey, Dave, do you have a favorite holiday country that you have visited? Well, I haven't visited too many countries. My favorite holiday, because I don't consider Halloween a holiday. My favorite holiday, like a real holiday where you get time off and you know what I mean, is Christmas for sure. But that's not because of any religious thing. I'm not a religious person at all. It's because of being a kid. I had that kind of, Santa Claus and the nostalgia and the gifts and family and cookies and things baking and, you know what I mean, right? When you get older, you have that nostalgia and so certainly it's my favorite holiday, for sure. I know some of you consider Halloween a holiday. I don't. I just think it's an event on the calendar like Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is not a holiday per se. So to me, Halloween's more of just like an event. You know what I mean? Oh, the Halloween event is coming up, but it comes and goes in really a matter of like 4 hours, because really Halloween isn't even a day, it's a night, and it's a night between like 6 and 10 p.m. That's really Halloween. Now, I know that people start celebrating early, and if you go online and you watch YouTube videos, they're talking horror, and they're having their month of Halloween and their month of horror, and they're celebrating and fan films and dressing up, and people have made it into a huge event, holiday kind of thing. I understand that. I get it. I respect that. But it's not, but on the calendar itself, it's not like you get a week off for Halloween. Maybe some people do take a week off for Halloween. I don't know. Halloween is definitely my favorite time of year. October and fall, October, November, like the fall is my favorite time of year when, the leaves are changing and it's kind of cool out and you just wear like a hoodie and a pair of jeans and that campfire kind of smell is in the air from people's fireplaces and stuff as you're walking along and definitely fall and autumn is fall and autumn is the same thing. But fall, autumn, my favorite time of year, 100%. And Halloween happens to fall in that. And Halloween is my favorite event of the year in that respect. But when it comes to holidays, like an actual holiday, it's Christmas. Christmas for sure. Johnny T says, hey, McRae, where have you visited in the U.S. other than L.A.? Do you have a favorite place in the States? Well, I've been to Chicago. I've been to Florida. I've been to New York. I've been to New York City, Buffalo, Detroit. I've been to where else have I been? It's like a few other places I'm missing. I know I am. But I'd say that there's a couple other places I'm missing. Oh, I've been to Maine, on the East Coast there, to Bangor, Maine, and all through there. Very pretty, very, very pretty there, through there. So yeah, those are some of the places I've been. I haven't traveled across the U.S. or anything like that. I'd love to go to Arizona for sure. Through the desert there. I'd love to go there. I'd love to visit the Grand Canyon. And I'd love to go to Philadelphia. I've never been to Philadelphia. I'd love to go to Philadelphia. I think that'd be fun. Run up those Rocky Steps or something. Troy Grubb says, mine too, Dave. My favorite time of the year is fall, and I also love Halloween because of football season. Well, there you go. Halloween because of football season. Let me scroll back here. I want to make sure I'm not... Scrolling back. Thought I had seen something. No, I guess not. I was looking for the individual who said that other channels are mimicking me or copying me or something. I just want to know who these... Now, you don't have to out them or anything. I just was curious because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And it depends what you mean. Like, do you mean like actually copying me, like mocking me, making fun of me? Or do you just get the impression that they're sort of inspired by me? Because those are two different things. Liam says, what dark and disturbing movies would you never watch or rewatch? None. I'd rewatch and watch every dark and disturbing movie. Everything. Give it to me. Give me all of it. All of it, you son of a bitch. All of it. Jonathan Ball says, you need to go to Atlanta, do a show with your buddy. If I could get down there, if I was allowed to, I'd go to Atlanta. That'd be fun to go to for sure. Tom Hungarian says, I'm only 150 pounds. I hate sweating, so I love fall as well. Only 150 pounds. Well, that shouldn't, I mean, you if you're only 150 pounds, I'd imagine you should be fine in the summer. It's the winter that I think you'd be worried about because you'd get colder in the winter. That's funny. Let's see. Let me scroll back. Who we got? Mark Williams says, hey, Dave, have you seen the trailer for this horror film called The Night House starring Rebecca Hall? It looks very intriguing. I have not. Never heard of it. I'll have to check it out. Justin Simonson says, what's a movie with a great premise but terrible film? Pick your movie. I mean, there's a lot of movies out there with a great premise that are terrible films. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't know. I gotta think. I don't know. Let me think on it. A great premise but a terrible film. Have to think on it. Bob says, do you see the court case for Friday the 13th resolved anytime? Well, you mean anytime soon? I am not confident for a new movie for years. Yeah, and I just don't know. Yeah. No, I don't think it's not gonna be this year for sure. And I think my concern is just where do you go with the Friday franchise? I just don't think it's as easy as people are making it out to be. And I try to say this to people. It's primarily because you have a situation where, if you're going to do a Friday the 13th movie, you want to see if you can get longevity out of it. And I just don't think that doing the same thing they've been doing is going to get that out of it. So, yeah. Blah, 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 blah. That's that little connection issue I'm having. I mean, it will eventually get resolved, for sure. For sure it will. But then the question is, what Friday the 13th movie do you do? And it depends on your level of standards. I don't want to see the same Friday the 13th movie we saw in 2009. And what I mean by that, I don't mean the exact same story. I just mean the same formula. You got to do something different. It's just, what's the fucking point? What's the point? Just put kids in a camp, get Jason in there, and yeah, well, we've done that like 14 times or 12 times or whatever it is. I mean, it's got to be another way. Or 13 times or however many fucking movies there are now. I don't know. It's got to be another way, ladies and gentlemen. Another way. Let me close this down. Let me close that down. I got too many fucking windows open here. 1 second, guys. Too many windows open. Close. Yeah, close that down. Close that down. Close that down. Leave that open. Leave that open. Leave that open. Leave that open. Okay. God, too many people. Too many. Too many. All right. Kevin Crabtree says, Dave, love your show. Thank you. Can you recommend me any of your favorite documentaries? My favorite documentaries? Oh, God. In what, in what sense? Like, in what category? Like, you mean in movies or you mean just in general? Oh, God. I tend to watch a lot of, let me know what sort of area, what was that movie called? The documentary I watched. Hang on. I forget the name of it now. Just trying to find it. Okay, where is it? I think it's in this list. I watched it not long ago. Where is it? I forget the name of it. It was about, but I don't know if this is going to interest you. You know what I mean? I want to steer you onto something that's in your interest. Obviously the social dilemma, I watched that, it's interesting, but I find it, I don't know. The social dilemma was good. It was good because it gives you insight into how you're being manipulated each and every day deliberately. And they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. It was good. It's on Netflix. I don't know if it's still there. I enjoyed that. That's not the one I wanted to. It's not in that list. Where is it? That's not the one I wanted to mention to you, though. I watched that one not long ago. It was cute. The Blockbuster one, the last Blockbuster. I watched that. It was cute. Let's just put it that way. Where is it? No, that's not it. That's not it. I must have the name wrong. Sorry, guys. I shouldn't be doing this live. I should have done this before. Let me know, and I'll see if I can. What sort of I watched the Elisa Lam documentary, of course. I watched the Night Stalker documentary, and they're a little. They're both. Both those stories could probably be told in especially the Elisa Lam one could have been told in 2 episodes as opposed to 4. So there's a lot of padding. There's a lot of bloat. Same with the Night Stalker one, really. The Night Stalker one's more interesting, I think, because of how long it went on. And there's more to unpack. There's more to uncover because it happened over the course of many years. Whereas Elisa Lam's story, you could probably tell it in 1 episode. Maybe not 1, 2 for sure. But those were good. I like a lot of the true crime mystery stuff for sure. Any of the death row stuff, I find those really interesting. There's a couple of documentaries, and you don't even have to get them on Netflix. If you just YouTube like Death Row documentary or something, oh my God. Like it's creepy. I don't know. There's some sort of thing I have when watching a documentary and they're interviewing people that have been sentenced to death. And they're going to, now whether you agree with it or not, whether you agree with the more, I'm not talking about this from a moral standpoint, a religious standpoint. It's just the documentary in and of itself. And I've watched a few of those, and those are fascinating and gives you really good insights into the prisons, especially the male prisons. Ooh, man, you know, like most of these death row inmates, of course, are on death row. So they're more kind of in isolation, really. They're not in, you know, the general population. But some of these prisons, man, are fucking tough. Or just watch a documentary on like the world's toughest prisons or scariest prisons. I think some of them are in like Brazil or no offense to, you know, the Brazilian people. Or like overseas somewhere, like these like countries, these like totalitarian type countries. Not that Brazil is like that. I'm just saying like some of like extra, you watch these, some of these prisons are dirty and gross, and the murder and the corruption and fuck. You should check out some of those documentaries. Those are cool. Those are, when I say cool, like it's like, it really gives you, really makes you appreciate, you know, living where we live. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, those are some that I enjoy watching. Bad Diggity Dizzle. I like that. Have you seen any of the movies in the Collectors franchise? I have not. In my opinion, it's definitely an underrated slasher. I have not. But I did hear that the new Collector sort of, they're having major problems with it, and unfortunately have had to stop production, which is a little unfortunate, actually. That's too bad. That's too bad. Darren Sands says, one of my favorite documentaries is Electric Boogaloo, the wild, untold story of Canon Films. I've heard of this documentary. What year was this? I have heard of this. I haven't seen it, though. 19... No, that's not it. There it is. There was another movie that came up there for a minute. I was like, I don't think that's it. 2014. Okay, cool. Thank you, Darren. I'm going to check that out. And there's a recommendation right there. Unintentional recommendation from Darren Sands. The wild, untold story of Canon Films. I remember Canon Films. I'll have to check that out. Keeping it in the wheel. Of course, I went off of, you know, the track. I wasn't really talking about movie. Maybe you were asking what movie documentaries. There's one right there. Troy Grubb sends in a $4.99 super chat and says they should hand over the Friday the 13th franchise to the guy who did Never Hike Alone and Never Hike in the Snow. Really enjoyed both of those. Well, I'm sure Vincent DeSanti would agree with you, and I agree. I know Vince had, and I don't want to speak for him. I don't know the details, but I do know that I believe Vince had a few conversations with Warner Brothers shortly. Actually, I think it was in and around the time that, I think this is 2019. I know there were some talks, not necessarily to take over the franchise, but there were talks about something. And I don't know enough about the details to speak openly on it. But yes, I think the one thing that is so great about being able to shoot high quality fan films on real, you know, professional gear with a professional crew is you're given, and it's still low budget. I mean, even though Vince, you know, raised that much money and we raised that much money for It's Me, Billy, it's relative. Yes, it's a lot of money, but it's still, It's Me, Billy is still considered, believe it or not, in the world of movie making, a ultra micro low budget film. I mean, maybe not ultra, but it's considered low budget, you know, very low budget. $60,000. It's nothing. I mean, Jesus Christ, on a major motion picture, that's like the catering for a week. You know what I mean? If that, you know, maybe it's more than that. But what is great is that it's enough money that if you are connected or you know what you're doing, you are able to hire the right people, use the right gear, and go out and make a movie that looks really good. Now, the reason why these movies are shorter and they're not feature length is because naturally that ups the budget, right? And I continue to get messages. I do. I continue to get them. Not every day, but on a fairly regular basis. And I just think of them as trolls because of the way they reach out to me. You know, they reach out to me in a very sort of condescending, not argumentative, but condescending sort of, the word I'm looking for. But anyway, argumentative, I guess, for the lack of a better word, type of approach. And, you know, they'll ask, inquire, I don't get it when, you can make a feature-length film for this much, and why do you need that much? And again, I never respond anymore, and it's primarily because, unless they're polite about it, and I get the sense that they're genuinely curious, but it's usually from people that just don't know that and I say this with absolute respect. I say this with absolute respect. It usually comes from those who just really are ignorant. And I don't mean that in the how some people take the word. Ignorant just means you're lacking knowledge, essentially. Is that you don't understand. All right. You're ignorant. Now you can be intentionally ignorant too. You can be stubbornly ignorant. I'm ignorant to a shitload of things, as we all are, right? We don't know everything. But it's usually from people that just don't understand how much it really costs to make a movie. Yes, I could shoot a feature-length movie on my cell phone. Of course. I could shoot a feature-length film on a DSLR camera, make it look pretty good. Yes, absolutely. Of course. But you cannot shoot on professional-grade cinematic equipment, rent out locations, hire crew and cast, production insurance. There's a lot of home movies, let's say, that are not professional productions. So they don't have to think about insurance. They just go out and shoot. You know what I mean? We had to think about insurance. We had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Our camera package alone was like $250,000, if not more. The replacement cost. Obviously, we didn't spend that. I'm talking about the replacement costs, right? So when you have this level of equipment, you have to have production insurance. That costs thousands of dollars. To feed people for a week costs thousands of dollars. To rent locations costs thousands of dollars. It's a movie. You're making a movie, and that's why Never Hike Alone looks as good as it does. It's why Never Hike in the Snow looks as good as it does, is because they went about it the way they did. So, the great thing about that is that with these high quality fan films, we can showcase and use them as part of a demo reel, kind of, right? As part of a portfolio to say, hey, we're serious about this. We raised this much money. We were successful at it. We did this. Look at this. And sometimes that can go a long way. Not all the time. The pool is saturated, but certainly if the quality will speak for itself. And I think that that's important, for moving forward. So if anything, high quality fan films, if you want to use a fan film as a portfolio piece to legitimately use it as a potential launching point, like to actually gain real interest, it has to be high quality. Studios are not going to look at fan films that are not high quality because there's just too much of them. And it doesn't really mean anything. But if you know how to go out and shoot with a professional crew on professional equipment, with professional actors and put something together that looks like it could, Never Hike Alone looks like it could be on Netflix, no problem. No problem. It's the first episode in, a series, right? It's Me, Billy is going to look like that too. and it would not be lost in the mix. It would not stand out, But that's intentional. Those are creative decisions. Vince, myself, what Cecil's doing with Dylan's New Nightmare, we've been working very hard to do that. And without you guys, it wouldn't be possible, right? You guys helped to make that a reality. And so we're all in this together, and we're all able to create something like that to kind of knock on some doors and say, hey, look at this, look what we're doing over here. But you got to be careful. You don't want to poke the bear unnecessarily. But yeah, no, Vince is great. And Vince is talented, smart. He's a smart filmmaker. He's not just talented, he's smart, and he knows his stuff, and he certainly knows Friday the 13th. And I mean, if they gave him the reins to do the next Friday the 13th, I think it would be in very capable and good hands, because he understands those nuances and details that he's keeping the DNA of Friday the 13th there, but he's pushing the narrative forward and giving you something new that you haven't seen before. He's not just putting a bunch of kids at a camp and going through the same fucking thing they've done 500 times. There's no longevity to that. There's only so many times you can go back to that well, and it's not 1982 anymore, for Christ's sakes. Audiences, I mean, yeah, that's fun and it's cute in a vacuum, but if you want any sort of longevity with that, you got to do something different. But the trick is keeping the DNA of Friday the 13th there, so that when you watch it, you go, wow, this is new, this is interesting, this is progressing. You got Tommy Jarvis, you get, wow, this is, but it still feels like Friday the 13th. And he's done very well at doing that. And let's not forget that Never Hike in the Snow, I know a lot of people were like, oh, it was too short, or it was this. And again, it's because Never Hike in the Snow is the first in line. It goes Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone, and it's got like 3 or 4 other chapters. And then when you piece them all together, it's going to be like a 3-hour movie, But he has to do it in stages, because if he didn't, he would be doing an Indiegogo campaign asking for, $500,000. And studios don't like that. Number one, they like to, they're like, okay, we'll turn away, but let's not, let's not go too far. So he doesn't want to do that. He wants to do it in stages of 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, whatever, 100,000, whatever it is. But that's how much it costs. I mean, if It's Me, Billy was going to be a feature, you would have to, we'd have to shoot for a month. It would probably cost us $250,000, $300,000. So it's always a lot easier to do it in sections, or to do little bits. It's cheaper and it's easier to do that. But I agree with you. I think Vince would be great. And I tell you, if anybody ever came knocking saying, hey, we like what you guys did here with Black Christmas, want to have a little chat? I'd be like, why, yes, I do. But we'll see. We can always dream, right? I went off on a tangent there, but I just think it's important. I think it's important people understand that's why I always say, do your due diligence. Yes, in a vacuum, $60,000 is a lot of money. It is. Absolutely, it's a lot of money. But when it comes to making a professional film, it's actually not a lot of money. When you understand where all that is allocated towards, when you understand how much does production insurance actually cost insuring, everything and everybody. How much does it cost to get a drone operator? How much does it cost to get this? How much does it cost to rent, that jib and that camera and that dolly track and all this and all these lights and the house and, and the food and the crew and the cast and and the transportation and the trucks and it costs a lot of money, but people just see 60,000 and think, well, I could shoot that on my phone. Yeah, you could, but it wouldn't look as good as what we're doing. That's the difference. All right. Enough of that. Just irritates me sometimes. People come with such arrogance and such like an accusatory sort of manner. And it's like, it's like, do your due diligence, familiarize yourself, and then come back and talk to me. But don't accuse me of or have this tone, this accusatory tone of almost stealing money when I could have just gone out and shot It's Me, Billy on my phone. Well, for fuck's sakes. It's like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that nonsense. Corey Dean says, you were supposed to do a Shining movie night last Halloween season and you got so busy with It's Me, Billy. Really want to hear your thoughts on the movie. Well, Tony and I had discussed doing that. That's right. And then, but it wasn't just me. He got really busy as well. He was loaded with work last October. So don't worry, we'll eventually do it. But The Shining is not something you can half-ass do. I mean, it's one of the most intense, deeply layered psychological horror movies in history. So it's something that takes great attention to detail. It's not something we can just pop on and throw into the schedule. So we'll probably keep it maybe towards October again. But I haven't talked to Tony about it since. But it has been very busy. It was really busy. Danita Brown says, hey, hello, chat room. Hello, Danita. Wonderful to see you here. Wonderful to see you here. Nate A says, Dave, would you agree that the new generation find Halloween 1978 boring? Yes. It sounds like they'd enjoy H2O over 1978. I don't know. Would you say Halloween 1978 outdated in 2021? Yes. What, Dave? Well, no, I'm just speaking objectively, right? When you look at Halloween 1978, it's my favorite horror movie of all time, period. Always has been. I love it. But when I look at the movie objectively, yes, it's dated. Of course it's dated. It doesn't, in terms of its production value, its look, it looks like a dated movie from the 70s. Some of the editing's a little choppy. Some of the acting's a little cheesy. But what they did well, they did so well that it's timeless. So it's like watching, Psycho or something. Psycho is dated. It looks like a 1960 movie. It's dated. But what they did well, it's the nuance of the storytelling and the suspense and the mood and the atmosphere. And of course, Halloween, the music and, it's that slow, it's that old school kind of, that filmmaking you don't see too much today. So yes, it's dated. It looks like an old movie. And there's little things in there that are a little, cheesy. But what they did well, they did really well. But it also takes, if you didn't grow, like if I had a kid, let's say, right? And I got my kid, who, let's say I had a son named, I don't know, Ryan, let's say. And at 5 years old, I introduced Ryan to Halloween because that's the age I was, let's say, right? Well, by the time Ryan got to 20, let's say now he's 20, he might love Halloween and love Elm Street and Friday the 13th and that series. But it's that balance between nature versus nurture, right? I am nurturing him. A big part of the reason why he likes it is not because he's watching it for the first time objectively as a 20-year-old in 2021. No, if that was the case, if Ryan, my son, didn't grow up with Halloween and he watched it for the first time in 2021 with his buddies, he'd probably be laughing hysterically, thinking it was the dumbest piece of shit he's ever seen. Because he logically would have been more into the more sensationalized, faster paced horror movies and movies of today, where he doesn't have an appreciation or a nostalgic connection to the older movies. If it wasn't for his dad, wasn't for me, right? For those of you that are just joining us, I don't have a son. I'm speaking hypothetically. And that would be the case. So a lot of, not everybody, it's not an exact science, but there are, I'm sure, a lot of younger viewers who watch me who got into it because of their dad or their mom or their friend's dad or whatever the case is. It's not usually that they themselves seeked out this old movie called Halloween from 1978 and popped it in and just loved it. The probability of that is lower because of the era we live in, right? It's the same reasons why we didn't like movies from the 40s in the 80s or in the 90s, because my dad wasn't there to, hey, son, look, as you get older and you mature, I've since gone back and watched movies that my dad used to tell me about that I was like, I don't care, right? And I'm like, this is really fucking good. But I'm also 41 years old and I'm older, I'm wiser, I'm more mature. I have more of an appreciation for film. I have far more, an appreciation for film history and the movies and the impact at that time and the context and all that kind of stuff, right? If I had watched Whatever Happened to Baby Jane when I was 17, I would have been like, boring. This is a horror movie. No, I probably wouldn't have been like that. But I would have been like, you know, the first time I watched 2001, I was like 14. I'm like, this is kind of, because I didn't get it. I'm 14. Now I'm like, it's fucking great because I understand a lot of the things that, you know, you miss, right? So yes, I do think that a lot of kids today, the younger generation, don't, but nor should they. They're not really supposed to. You know, our society's not designed that way. Hopefully they have a parent or a friend or, you know, whatever that gets them into it and allows them to see it. Because generally what happens is that you will have parents that will show their kids Star Wars or that will show their kids Halloween or Elm Street. And the child is seeing the movie through the lens of the parent. They're watching the movie they're not excited to watch it because it's an old movie. It looks really old to them. My friend Bruce, his kids like the prequels of Star Wars way more than they like the original films because they grew up with the prequels. They watched The Empire Strikes Back and it's like, lame. You know what I mean? It's like, how can you make this lame? You know, maybe not quite that to that degree, but there are some kids out there that when you get them young, they watch those movies through your lens. So they're watching your excitement. They're seeing your eyes glow and then their eyes glow because your eyes glow because they're seeing it. And you know what I mean? It's that's usually why somebody of like 19 years old today might be a gigantic original trilogy fan. It's not all the time, but it's usually because they've had somebody older introduce it to them. And they've been able to sort of bypass the this looks really dated and lame. Look at those effects. They've been able to bypass that because they're looking at it through the lens of somebody who appreciates it. You know what I mean? But in a vacuum, when we just think about it, yeah, Halloween's dated today. Of course it is. Yep, absolutely. But it doesn't mean it's not great because the things that they did so well in that movie are timeless. And that's why it still holds up today. A couple super chats. Troy Grubb sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you, Troy. Says, I respect what you guys all do making the movies. There's a lot goes into movie making, like you said so well, Dave. The budget, catering, and location. That's why I love your channel, Dave. I learn a lot from you, Dave. Love you, buddy. Thank you, Troy. Really appreciate that, man. There is a lot. There is a lot, you know, and it's not because we didn't set out to make a movie like this. And when I say on this scale, it's not a gigantic movie. I just mean on a scale that we haven't done before, right? We did it because we knew that we wanted it to, you know, I mean, with amazing fan films, with high production value, if you want to be able to quote unquote compete or be taken seriously as a filmmaker, you have to be able to compete. And, you know, I always say this, but it's true. It's not lost on us that we work in the industry. So we have connections and resources that the average person would not necessarily, of course. So it is easier in that sense. But we wanted to utilize it. We wanted to utilize our connections, our resources, and make a quote unquote real film. But when you make the decision to do that, you have to go through the stages and the steps and the processes, you know, of making a real movie. You know, so I always tell people, yeah, it's a fan film in category, but switch out It's Me, Billy for a movie called, I don't know, Someone Like Us. There's probably a movie actually called that, but I don't know. You know, and it's an original movie about a teen that goes missing and she's discovered dead, and it was her stepdad that was accused of the murder, and, you know, whatever, right? Say it's an original movie like that, right? We would have done the same thing. We would have been asking for the same, I don't know. I don't know if it's the same amount. Maybe it would have been more. But we would have gone through the same process, right? So that's what people have to understand. So if anybody out there thinks that we could have shot It's Me, Billy for $5, you're right. We could have shot It's Me, Billy for $5, but it would have been a shitty looking movie. It would have been a dog shit movie. You know, it would have looked like a home movie. It would have looked like ass. You know, but if you want to make a real movie, well, this is what it costs. That's why you hear movies' budgets cost the way, because that's how much it costs. And this is nothing. $60,000 is nothing. And we spent every penny of it. Every penny of it. We didn't, like, there was nothing. And Bruce and I, by the way, Bruce and I did not receive a cent of that. Not 1 cent. Literally zero. It all went into the production. That's true. So, but you're right. But again, it's just those that don't understand. I'm not angry at them. I just wish that if you want to have a conversation and you want to find out why It's Me, Billy cost the way it did or why certain movies cost, we can have that conversation, right? And I can do my best to educate you on why certain films cost the way they do or as much as they do. But it's the accusatory sort of tone and you know, that like somehow I'm being nefarious or that I'm being misleading and that really what I did was pocketed the $60,000 and it really only cost us $5 to make the movie or something like that. It's that kind of thing that's sort of like, I don't have time for that. You know, like grow up. You know, if you want to have a conversation, we can have a conversation, but don't come at me because then I don't have time for it. It's your problem then. You don't understand how much it costs and you know, that's your problem, not mine. Educate yourself, as the saying goes. But thank you, Troy. I appreciate that very much. Frank Greiger sends in a $5 super chat, says, Dave, who do you think was a more sadistic warden? Ooh, the warden in Lockup or Shawshank? Well, that's a good question, Frank. That's a good question. I forgot the guy's name was Drumgoole. That's funny. Frank, I'm just going to say Norton for now because I haven't watched Lockup. Is it Lockup or Locked Up? I haven't watched that in a few years and I'm going to have to watch that again. But I'm going to say, I don't know, I'm leaning towards Norton. I'm leaning towards Norton. There's something about but I got to watch that. Maybe it's a bias because I love The Shawshank Redemption. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But that's a really good question. That's a really good question, actually. That's really, really good. Chris Manders says, hey, Dave, what are your thoughts on the movie The Faculty? Love it, man. Love it. Well, I'm going to say love it. It's not like I love it like how I love The Shawshank Redemption. But I think it's a pretty good horror movie, especially, what was it, 99, 2000? Somewhere around there. It was sort of like, was it after that? Maybe it was 2001. Hey, Google, what year did The Faculty come out? Oh, 1998. Wow, I was off. I thought it was a little later than that. I did like that movie a lot, though. It was good. It was good. I liked it. Let me see. Did I get all the super chats? Oh, we got one coming in from, wait it, Cordell sends in $4.99, says, what's up, Dave? Any thoughts on the new Space Jam? By the way, I'm a Jordan guy over LeBron. Yeah, well, Space Jam, I think LeBron doesn't, from the trailers I've seen, I have to admit, LeBron doesn't have a charismatic bone in his body. Not that Michael Jordan was a thespian in terms of his acting, but LeBron just looks terrible. He just looks like he's being fed lines or something. It's awful. It's awful. However, the Looney Tunes look great. Shout out to Eric Bauza, of course, from Toronto. Eric Bauza is the voice of, I don't know if he's the voice of Bugs Bunny in Space Jam 2, but he is one of the top voices for Bugs Bunny. He's Canadian from Toronto here. I haven't talked to him in a number of years. We follow each other on Twitter, but I haven't, the last time I talked to him was when I was doing a podcast with a couple of VO buddies of mine, Mike and Garnet. We were doing a voiceover podcast about 7 or 8 years ago. And we had Eric on as a guest. And this is before he was Bugs Bunny. He had already done a bunch of stuff, though, for like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and things like that. Really, really nice guy. Really sweet guy. And I think he's about my age. And I know he's doing Daffy Duck in Space Jam 2. But I don't know if he's doing Bugs Bunny. It might be Jeff Bergman that's doing Bugs Bunny in Space Jam 2. But anyway, on the HBO Max series, the Looney Tunes series on HBO Max, Eric does Bugs Bunny and Daffy. And I think he also does Marvin the Martian too, and a couple others. He's great. It's a very talented dude. Very, very talented. I wish I could do Bugs Bunny and Daffy. That'd be fucking amazing. I would literally walk around just talking like them all the time. But he sounds great in it, and you know, the rest of the cast sound great, but I think LeBron just, you know, I just don't think he's a very good actor. Let's just put it that way. And I don't know. I haven't seen the original Space Jam in years, so I don't really know. I don't really know how this one's going to work out. I hope it succeeds, though. Not for LeBron. I couldn't give a fuck about LeBron. He's rich like you wouldn't believe. So I hope Space Jam 2 is a huge success. Not for LeBron, because I don't care. I don't care about LeBron. But for my fellow VO actors that are putting their heart and soul into those Looney Tune characters. That's what I hope. Oh, let me scroll back. The Rusty Lion sends in £5. Thanks, buddy. Says, yeah, that's £5. Is it £5? Yeah. Hey, brother, I rewatched the first Jeepers Creepers last night. It's one of my favorite horror movies. Your thoughts when two dudes episode on it? No, probably not. Probably not going to do a Two Dudes episode on Jeepers Creepers just because of the whole controversy surrounding it. But I like the first one. I think Tony did too. It's just too bad the director's a scud-sucking piece of shit. But certainly but you know, I can separate the art from the artist. I can do that, but not everybody can do that, and I respect that. But Jeepers Creepers 1, I like. Jeepers Creepers 2, I thought was all right. The third one I thought was, wildly crap. Johnny T says, hey, Dave, I'm assuming your It's Me, Billy budget is written in spreadsheet format. Is it something you would consider sharing? Just curious, not accusatory at all, how it's done and things are allocated. Well, no, I wouldn't share that because, of course, there's a lot of private information that surrounds that. I mean, you know, it's unnecessary to share that, but I can tell you that it is in spreadsheet format, and how and what is allocated towards each actor and each crew member, and for production insurance, craft services, lighting and grip, camera department, the Ronin rental and the truck rentals and it's all there. It's all there. But it's, and I'm not saying that you're being that way, but it's private information. I mean, it's nothing, it's not something that needs to be shared. There's no reason for me to share it. There's no, I have conducted myself, as our entire cast and crew have, in the utmost professional way. We have been absolutely transparent. Certainly, you know that we would not have been able to make this movie without it. And there'd be no need for me to share it. It's not a tax, it's not like my taxes or something, and I'm gypping people on my taxes. And there's a lot of private personal information on there as it relates to the actors, the crew, and all that. So, but yes, it is in spreadsheet format, and that goes out to Bruce. And that is, shout out to him. He was he was handling all of that, which is great. He did up a spreadsheet and allocated everything so we could keep track of it, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what we did. And cause it's easier to actually, keep track of it, in that way rather than like in a Word document naturally. And Bruce is so good with his spreadsheets and that kind of stuff, cause he deals with that kind of stuff on the regular. So I let him handle the budget breakdown and all that. And it's also important to note too, for those of you that again may not understand how this works, budgets are not arbitrary numbers. So, and this is like this in the, at the studio level as well. When Bruce and I placed that number of 60,000, that wasn't because of a conversation that Bruce and I had, and we said to each other, how much do you think we can make this movie for? I don't know, what, 50,000, 60,000? Yeah, let's go 60. That's not how it works. That's a completely irresponsible way of doing it, because then you could be asking for way too much, or you could be asking for not nearly enough. So when you do a budget breakdown, it's because the script has been written, you're looking at locations, you're speaking to crew, you're speaking with insurance companies. Bruce works for William F. White International, which is the distribution company that handles the lighting and grip and camera. So we knew how much that was going to cost. And you come up with a total based on the information you work out in terms of cast and crew and insurance and lighting and grip and camera and all that kind of stuff, and rentals and location and craft services. And you inquire, you reach out to these people and you inquire, here's what we're doing, here's how long and you do that after you've done the shot breakdown, the production schedule, on how long you think you're going to need. Because that's important too. How long do you think we're going to be able to shoot this movie? Again, not an arbitrary number. We don't sit there and go, I don't know, what do you think? What, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days? Let's do 6. That's not how it works. You can't do that. And the reason why you can't do that is because you have to have exact numbers, as close as you can get, exact dates as close as you can get, because there's too many turning wheels. There's too many people depending on you. There's too much money involved, so you can't just arbitrarily come up with these types of things. So again, we knew that It's Me, Billy was going to be a 6-day shoot. We knew that we needed this. We knew that we needed that. That's why you do location scouts. That's why myself and Bruce and Greg and Nikita and Naz, our gaffer and key grip, why we drove the 4.5 hours up to the location to look at the location and to look at the space. And it gives our DP and our gaffer and our key grip time to look at the space and talk to us about what we want, what we envision, and that lets our gaffer and Greg, our DP, know, okay, what do we need in terms of equipment and lighting and to make their vision a reality. Okay, so they have 4 scenes in here. They're talking about having moonlight coming through here. They want the camera to ped over here or to pan over here, ped up and come to. We're talking to them about this stuff, and that gets their wheels turning. And then what they do is Nikita, who is our gaffer, and Greg supply Bruce and I an equipment list, right? And they go, here's what we need to make your vision a reality. We need these lights. We need this rig. We need this jib. We need this. We need this. We're going to need these bulbs and this light and this. And in comes the equipment list, right? And then Bruce takes that as like, okay, well, how much is all this going to cost? You know what I mean? That's how it's done. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of wheels that are moving and turning to be able to actually come to the conclusion of what we need to make this a reality. So it's important that when you're making a movie professionally, that's what you have to do. Because if you don't do that, you could luck out and get by the skin of your teeth and okay, but you could just as easily not. And now you don't, and now you don't have enough money to pay everybody. And now you're going over schedule. Oh shit, we don't have the right equipment. We don't have the right bulbs. We don't have the right lights. Oh shit, we have the wrong type of jib. Oh crap, we have the wrong, you know what I mean? And so that's why it's so important that people understand that, and I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm talking about anybody who makes a professional independent film. These are not arbitrary numbers. They are specifically calculated in relation. So when that Indiegogo campaign launched, 60,000, that was because that's what we knew we needed to make this movie. And of course, any extra we make goes towards the stretch goals, right? And we had a couple of stretch goals in there as well. We weren't able to get to that, but certainly that's why you have that as well, right? We need 60,000 to make this movie, but let's say we raised 100,000. Well, it's like, oh my God, well now we can add on 2 more weeks because we can spend 2 more weeks shooting, and we can hire more crew, which is great. That's going to make things easier. But if we're shooting for 2 more weeks, that's 2 more weeks of food, and that's 2 more weeks of insurance, and that's 2 more weeks of this. And so the more you make is great, but it also, or the more you shoot is great for longer, but of course it ups the price and everything. So hopefully that was able to give you some insight into sort of how it works. I mean, believe it or not, it's a Cliff Notes version. I could get even more detail, but that's the general idea. I just want people to understand that all of your money went towards the film, 100%. And you can be very proud when you watch it going, I helped to make that a reality, because you really did. You really did. Bruce and I pocketed nothing, like literally zero, literally 100%, 100%. And because we knew, and we knew that. We knew going into that we were not going to make anything off of it, that we wanted everything to go into the movie. And why did we know that? And how did we know that we weren't going to receive anything? Because we did a budget breakdown. That's how we knew. So when it came to the end and all the money was spent on the movie and there was nothing for us, we weren't upset because that's how it was designed. It was designed that way. You know what I mean? So it's very important that people understand, again, these are not arbitrary numbers. Now, I can't speak for anybody else. I'm just talking about how we handled it in the most professional way possible. Danita Brown sends in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Danita. Thank you, Danita. Says, hello there, Dave. If you could make your movie Port Robinson Road, whom from today's Hollywood actors would you want to portray me if possible? Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I would rather, obviously they'd be younger. They'd be probably in their early to mid 20s. I don't know, Danita. That's a great question. And thank you for that. I would probably say, I'm going to get to your super chat, Jeff. Don't worry. I would probably say unknowns, people that are not relatively known. I'm a big, now again, you might fight with the studio on that, whoever has the money, because they want known actors to help generate revenue. But I want the sole focus. I would rather just be unknowns. Like maybe you have an anchor. So maybe one of the professors at the college is somebody well known, like what they did sort of with Halloween, where you have a bunch of unknowns, but then you have Dr. Loomis as sort of, or Donald Pleasance is sort of your anchor. He's a known actor, right? You do see films doing that from time to time to give the movie some credence, some cred, some weight to it. So I'd be open to that. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's a bunch of unknown actors, but you have somebody like a Harrison Ford or a Kurt Russell or somebody who's like, you know, one of the professors at the college who happens to have like a significant role or something like that. You know what I mean? And then it kind of anchors the movie, gives the movie some cred. And certainly if you can have a name like that attached to the project before you have the money to make it, that definitely will help you. Not a guarantee, but will certainly help you with the probability of getting the money to make the movie when investors find out that, oh, you have reservoirs attached to it. Well, then maybe we should, you know what I mean? So obviously that's leverage as well in that sense. But I would say, I'd say probably a bunch of nobodies. Jeff Harris sends in $4.99. Thanks, buddy. He says, hey, Dave, thoughts on the first Strangers movie? Loved it. Saw it in the theater in 2008. I thought the sequel was crappy. Yeah. Also, another home invasion movie I really like was Hush. Hush was great. I really liked Hush, Jeff, and thank you again for the super chat, man. And sorry it took me a bit to get to it. I was going off on my tangent trying to give people some details. Yes, Hush was great, and I really enjoyed the first Strangers. The Strangers Prey at Night, you know, it was okay. It was okay. I didn't think it was great. There were some moments. Certainly, it's not terrible. It's not terrible, but I much prefer the first one. Okay, let me see here. I got those. Got Danita. Frank Riker says, Dave, favorite Daffy Duck short. I love the one where Bugs is the cartoonist, drawing, erasing objects just to mess with him. I love how Daffy gets mad. Well, Daffy is my favorite Looney Tunes character of all time, in case you haven't noticed. Oh, there's so many good ones. There's an old one that my girlfriend and I will often joke to each other about. And I forget what it is. It's an old one, though, where he's dressed in like a trench coat or something. And he walks into this room and there's this stuffy butler. And the butler's like, walk this way, sir. Like, walk this way. Like, come with me, right? But he takes it literally. So the butler's like this stuffy kind of guy. And he's like, walking like this all posh, And so Daffy goes, okay, and starts walking like that behind. It's just like the animation from the 40s. And I laugh hysterically every time I see it. Duck season, rabbit season, of course, is a classic. That's great. Anything with Daffy Duck really is fucking hilarious at the end of the day. But I'm a big fan, and they stopped doing it. And it's too bad. From 2011, the Looney Tunes show. It's where like Daffy and Bugs and Porky, it's like a sitcom, and they all live kind of in the same neighborhood, and they get into all sorts of shenanigans. It's like watching an episode of Seinfeld or something, and it's fucking hilarious. I love the Looney Tunes show from 2011. There's like 2 seasons, 50-something episodes, not as much as I think there should be. But I love that show. I love that show. And there's this one scene where Daffy's trying to sign Porky up for online dating. And of course, there's a lot of things in this show you couldn't do now. And that show is only 10 years ago, but I laugh hysterically at it. And, it's Porky Pig, right? And he's basically mocking Porky. He's making fun of him, right? Right in front of his face. And Daffy's like, all right, we're going to put you on, online dating. And, he's got his photo on there, and it's just half his face because it's Porky Pig because he's so ugly or something. You know what I mean? He's like, all right, now about your name. You can keep Pig or you can keep Porky, but you can't keep both. And it's just the way he says it is so fun. You can keep Pig or you can keep Porky, but you can't keep both. And it's just funny because it's so true. Like, imagine online dating. You see Porky Pig or Porky and Pig. Yeah. You can keep Porky and keep Pig, but you can't keep both. I think that's what I said. I laugh hysterically every time I see it. And Porky's so naive, and he's like, okay, whatever. And then he's like, I'll tell you what. Screw your name. We'll change your name to like Alejandro Venezuela. So something like exotic. You get this sense it's really like this tall, dark, sexy Spanish guy or something. Something like that. It was just so fun. It's just funny. It's this. If you haven't checked out the Looney Tunes show, there's some episodes on YouTube. It's hilarious. I love that. But anything with Daffy, man. Daffy is he's just great. Fucking love Daffy. Jonathan Ball says, Looney Tunes show, my 4-year-old loves it, and it's really good. Wife and I love it as well. Isn't it? It's fucking hilarious. I love the Looney Tunes show. Mike, I'm over time here, I know that, but I was rambling. Mike Johnson says, The Lost Boy rocks. Great replay value. I could literally watch it over and over and over. Never gets old. Great atmosphere at night at the amusement park. The Lost Boys? Oh, The Lost Boys, excuse me. Yes. Yeah, The Lost Boys is great. Destiny Falconer is in here, and she says, I love Tiny Toons. I remember Tiny Toons. We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony, and in this cartoony, we're invading your TV. Are you talking about that one from the early 90s? I don't know. I'm dating myself here. I remember that one. Tiny Toons was great. Cat73 says, hey, Dave, would you be interested in doing a true crime episode on the Sherman murders? Maybe. I'll have to look up at what the Sherman murders are. I'm not sure. Michael Myers says, Dave, have you voiced any video game characters? I have. There's been a couple of mobile app games that I've done. I'll have to look up. I don't know if they're still available or not. Nothing for like PlayStation or Xbox or anything like that. But there's been a couple of mobile app games that I've done a couple of voices for. I have to look them up though. Not in a few years, but I'll have to look them up and see if they're still available. I don't know if they're still available or not. Everyday Horror says, Dave, I was referring to Fandom Empire copying your YouTube channel. Seemed like they stole your formula, style, and everything. Well, I know Sean over at Fandom Empire, and I have to disagree. I don't get the sense that he's copying me. I don't think so anyway. I think Sean's a great dude, a cool dude. He's always been very respectful of me and our time here and our time together. And now I can't speak for what others have seen or noticed. To be fair, I don't watch Sean every day. I don't watch all his shows because I'm just far too busy. It's nothing personal. Just the same, I would imagine he doesn't watch everything I do. But what I have seen of Sean, he's got a channel over there that is continuing to grow and seems like a nice guy. He's doing his own thing. He's making it his own. And I don't get the sense that he's copying me. Not that I've seen anyway. Unless there's something I'm missing, dude. Unless there's something I'm missing, I don't get that sense anyway. All right, one more minute to go, and then I will call it a day. Nick Townsend says, Dave, have you seen The Professional? Oh, yes. Leon, The Professional? Yes. I love that movie. Natalie Portman's first film, 1994. Oh, Gary Oldman is the villain, I guess. Great film. Love that. Animaniacs were great. They were great. I memorized, the country song. And of course, that was the great Rob Paulson, the great animated cartoon voice actor Rob Paulson, who did that. But the Countries of the World song, I memorized a long time ago, like a quarter of that. And I think it goes something like United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuban Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, Ecuador, Chile, Brazil. That's like, I think, a quarter of it. That's not bad. That's a quarter of it. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuban Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, something like that. It's been a while since I've done it. But my goal years ago was I was trying to memorize the whole thing. And it's always easy. It's not as difficult to memorize as you might think. And that's primarily because they all rhyme. And it's much easier to remember rhyming in what comes next than it is if it's not rhyming. Not that it's easy. I mean, my hat goes off to the great Rob Paulson, who was brilliant, because he's a singer as well. So he was able, and he sung in, is it Jacko or Wacko? I think it's one of the two. He sung in his voice, right? And that's not easy to do. That's not easy to do. So he was great. He was great, and he could do it flawlessly. But yeah, about 10 years ago, I had a goal of memorizing the whole thing, and I memorized, like I said, about a quarter of it. And I think that's it. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuban Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, Ecuador, Chile, Brazil. I think I'm right. I think I'm on the right path. What comes after that? I can't remember. I can't remember. All right, folks, listen, that's going to do it for me. I think I got all the super chats. Did I get all the super chats? I think I did. Yes. Frank is not blitzing me with those sexy those sexy mean faces. So I think I'm okay. Because Frank's on that, and he would have gotten that no problem. Folks, thank you for joining me here today on episode 161 on this episode of McRae Live, all Q&A. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the super chat questions that came in today, the non-super chat questions that came in today. You guys are amazing. You know you are, sincerely. You guys are awesome. Have a great rest of your Tuesday today. Stay safe out there, and I will be back, as of right now, hopefully Thursday at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, guys. In the meantime and in between time, cheers.